Fáilte go music at Madden's is Michelle Lynette Fay. This is a weekly podcast that drops every single Monday on Spotify, Apple, and on YouTube. And it introduces you to members of the traditional music and folk music family in Ireland and beyond, recorded here in Madden's Bar in the heart of Belfast City. So when I have your attention, can I ask you to do me a favour, please? If you're liking what you're listening to or seeing, can you please like, subscribe, and also comment on the podcasts, and that helps us to keep it going from week to week. We have big plans for this podcast, particularly as Flaithioil na Heran coming to Belfast approaches in August 2026, and more about those plans anon. But now, I can see the sun is shining outside. There's a lot of noise in the background here as Madden's is very busy downstairs, but who have we up in the snug to have the chats today? Let's see. So in the snug today on Music at Madden's, we have a man from County Louth. But he's a County Louth native, but he's been living here in Belfast for 30 years now, he tells me, and he is a regular at many, many sessions here in the city, particularly in the Garrick and here in Madden's itself. And you'll also see him in Hayden's in the Rock, just outside Pomeroy in County Tyrone, once a month on the last Saturday. He is banjo guitar maestro Stevie Dunne.
Well, Annette.
This will be some chat, Stevie.
I'm telling you. You'll not be able to stop me talking now.
Have you been able to sleep over the last while thinking about this?
From you messaged me and asked me would I jump onto the podcast.
Well, you have a lot to talk about, Stevie.
I don't sleep anyway. I get about 3 or 4 hours a night sleeping.
Well, do you not sleep because of your work pattern? Is because you're a nurse? Is that come into it at all?
I suppose I'm management now, so 9 to 5, although it's never really strictly 9 to 5. But
yeah.
I don't sleep because I'm always thinking of tunes. There's always something going on in my head. I tell you, it's good crack now. But yeah, no, I genuinely don't I've never slept even from I was a child. Just is the way I am, you know.
And so in the middle of the night is where the ideas come into the head, and then this is when you make them happen, because you've been working on a new album.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that because, my gosh, you've been busy and also playing every instrument on the album, Stevie. But tell me about coming to Belfast, because is it 30 years this year that you
30
came?
30 years, yeah, 30 years. Actually, I came in April 96, so it's 30 years now exactly.
Stevie, where was the party?
I didn't have time for parties. There's been plenty of parties. You just have to speak to Bamber. He knows all the crack. But yeah, I came to train as a nurse in 96, and it was 3 years of training, and then I kind of didn't really play an awful lot of music because I was focused on, doing my training. I would have went home at weekends and played at home with some of the local musicians.
And home is County Louth?
Yeah, Clogherhead and County Louth. Plus my mother was like, "You're not taking your instruments with you, you're up there to study. You're not going out and about playing tunes."
Yeah, well,
I suppose if I had
mother's prerogative.
Yeah. If she tends to be right. I probably wouldn't have ever qualified as a nurse if I had been playing music, But I started playing music on the 23rd of December in 1999 in the Rotterdam Bar. Was my first session in Belfast.
Why do you remember the date? Why is it imprinted on your brain? So,
I suppose, I started playing music when I was about 12, and where I come from, there's not an awful lot of music. There's a group in Dunleer, which is the neighbouring village, called Scurry-Ock-Dunleera, and they were great, and they were a great start for me in music, playing with other musicians, and generally older musicians, kind of like the pop of the group. But when I came to Belfast, I started off listening to Cal Hayden, Four Men and a Dog. I'm going to digress here, but I suppose the story is important for me because my world changed when I heard Hand It Down. Cal's first album. Yeah. So I'd pestered my father to get me a guitar when I was about 11. So he got me a guitar, and I paid him back with my confirmation money, And I'd learned the guitar in about 6 weeks. It was Christy Moore's album Prosperous and his songbook. So I just started listening and then doing one string at a time and looking to see what the chords were and listening to see if it sounded a bit like what Christy was doing. So then that started up me off playing the guitar. Before that, so my mother in the grand scale of things, had bought me for my birthday a small wee keyboard, and I think she had sent me to lessons when I was about 11. I think her plan was I was going to be the organist in the church. There was nothing further away from my plan.
Should be job in mind and all, big purpose for you. Yeah.
If I was never going to be a priest, but I was definitely going to be some way involved at home. But that didn't I went to lessons for about 4 months, and then I was like, not going back there. But I was always kind of musical and always playing away at the keyboard until I pestered my father to get a guitar. And I'd learned that in about 6 weeks. And I started picking out the tunes from Prosperous, like the melody. And then my uncle, he heard me and he says, "You should try the banjo." I was like, "What?" And my uncle's no longer sadly with us. He passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry.
When I was about 18. But he gave me the first banjo, and he gave me 2 tapes. It was Handed Down, Cal's Handed Down, and then Walton's 50 Irish Banjo Tunes, which was Jerry Banjo and Davy McNevin. And then when I heard Handed Down, having been playing the guitar for about maybe 6 months, my world changed completely. Like the way the drive in that album kind of just... I was just completely hooked on banjo. It was Cal's last album was, I was completely hooked on it, and I would have spent, so put it like this, from about the age of 12 to 18 when I moved up here, was spending about maybe 5 hours a day Monday to Friday, and about 8 hours on a Saturday and Sunday.
What was it about it that you were that had you completely engrossed?
I actually don't know. I seem to fall into playing the banjo and the guitar. I mean, I tried the fiddle, and that's not something that would ever be...
That was my next question, was you obviously listened to Handed Down, so why the banjo and not the fiddle?
Well, I tried the fiddle, and it was not easy. I found myself having numerous toothaches by grinding my teeth as I'm there trying to do the fiddle. Anything with a pick I could get a note from.
Yeah,
The fiddle just... I didn't seem to have the patience for a fiddle. And it's one of my favourite instruments, to be fair, but...
Yeah. But yet you had the determination to really sit and discipline yourself to really learn, the banjo tunes. And like when you're learning, though, whenever we were younger, let's call it for what it was, we didn't have the resources that youngsters have now when they're trying to learn music, Stevie. You're very lucky. You had a cassette recorder where you could play the music. There would have been very little traditional music even on radio to be taping, to make your mixtapes, whatever. Record shops, again, limited supplies of various tapes or whatever it was at the time, or albums if you were lucky enough to have a record player back in the day. So you would have had maybe 2 or 3 albums if you were very lucky. Were you wanting to perfect every note on those particular albums? Was that what you were doing?
So I was extremely lucky. So I didn't know my uncle played the accordion and the fiddle. Like he was in our house every week. He would come over for a cup of tea. Like my father was a fisherman, so he had his own trawlers and he was away out 3 or 4 weeks at a time. He'd be over in Galway. He'd be up here in Kilkeel. He'd be fishing out in the Irish Ocean. Mm-hmm. Very, very hard life. And he wasn't always at home because of work. So my uncle, would be coming over and he'd be checking in on me and my brother Peter. And I didn't know that he was a musician, And then when I'd done a bit of research into our family, so he was a musician. And my grandparents weren't musical, but my great-grandfather was from the Knoll in County Dublin.
Dublin, yeah.
And he was a melodeon player. So he would have played at Crossroad Cayleys. And my father tells me a story of the floating ballroom Now, he's told me this story probably about 10 times, and I still don't know what a floating ballroom is, but apparently that was something back in the day for dances. But I suppose that's where the music came from. And really, until I started playing the keyboards and then moving over to the guitar, I didn't really envisage as a child that I was going to be musical because I was playing football. And then I broke my leg a couple of times and I was told you can't play football. So I had to have an outlet. And in them days, there was either music or football was the only two things. So football wasn't an option. So music, it was something that I was drawn towards. And the creativity involved in music. But for me, it was like an obsession, like hours on end. Like, like on a Saturday morning, I would get up at 7 o'clock. I'd dig into a packet of caramel mini squares and ate the whole lot, watching He-Man and Thundercats for half an hour, and then the TV went off and I was playing the banjo. And I started playing the banjo relatively quickly, and it didn't take me that long to actually be able to play tunes. But what I done was I listened to Cahill, Jerry O'Connor, banjo, Brian McGrath, Davy McNevin, and I was listening to what they were doing. I was trying to copy what they were getting, the sound that they were getting, so the triplets and the way they were playing the tunes and stuff. And then, like, I had limited resources, you say, but my uncle had in his kitchen, he had this press over the cooker hood, extractor fan. It was just filled with tapes. So I would go over every 2 or 3 weeks and take a few tapes.
Treasure trove.
And then back home and learn the tunes on it. So you'd, like, say, Dan and Four Men and a Dog. Like, when I put Four Men and a Dog in, Barking Mad, and listen to that.
There's magic. It was just so like, different.
My God.
Yeah.
This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
So kids dream of, I'm going to be a footballer, going to be an astronaut. I just wanted to play music. But I went in, I suppose, I followed my other passion in nursing because I like caring for people, because I looked after my grandfather in Dublin for years who had dementia. So like I would have been up every summer holidays, any holidays that we got from school were always way up to Dublin. And then I was the only grandson that could shave him, wash him, and he was aphasic, so he couldn't speak. And yeah, I just used to lie up in the bed beside him. He had a wee small TV about that size, watching movies, and I would just sit beside him, and then I'd go and help him, maybe feed him and stuff. So I kind of went into nursing because of that.
That's beautiful, Stevie. Though that to spend that time with him in that way, so intimate and close. You can't get any closer than that.
We'll stop talking about this because I do get a bit emotional.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think
understandably so.
And my drive for being a nurse was to try and help people, and then the other passion being music, So it is kind of the two areas of my life that has led me to where I'm at now.
Has music then become almost like an outlet? Because as a nurse and going into the medical profession in any way, you can't just clock in and clock out. You're going to be dealing with people and dealing with conditions and dealing with stories that they can't but stay with you whenever you go out to the car to go home. Unless, because you're all human beings at the end of the day as well.
Yeah.
It's the nature of the job. So have you found that over the years, as you trained as a nurse, became a nurse and, practiced, that music was more of an outlet for you? Was there almost like a therapy in music for you?
Yeah, music it's really cathartic for me, because there's always something, like, my work is very busy, and productively busy, in that in the role I'm in now as senior manager, I have the ability to try and, shape how our services are run. So, like, that is an honour and a privilege. But music, and you don't, because you hear some really challenging stories and you deal with challenging incidents and so forth, and it's hard to switch off. But music allows you to sort of not necessarily turn off those sort of thoughts in your head, but it enables you to go to a different place in your head, so you can kind of not necessarily switch it off or subdue them, but the music for me has always been like a therapy. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it has been like, you know, like the counselling that I never pay for. You know,
But it's pure mindfulness too, because you're sitting, you have to concentrate on what you're playing. Also, in a session, then there's an eye on what everybody else is doing and all the rest of it. So you have to be very present in that moment, in that space
yeah.
where you are. So there's very little room for anything else, and that's all going on.
There's a lot of room in my head, but there's a lot going on at any one given time. But yeah, I think you're right. Like, I mean, you do, when you're playing music, you do have to be focused. I'm getting a bit older. I have to be more focused. I'm probably more focused on the banjo than I am with the guitar. Because the guitar is probably, I wouldn't say it's easier to play, but it's probably less taxing because you're listening to other musicians and you're accompanying other musicians.
Yes.
So, like, your job when you're playing the guitar is to sort of create a platform in terms of accompaniment.
Yes.
But yeah, so um,
And do you go through phases where you're drawn more to the guitar than you are to the banjo? Has that been true through your life?
um, the banjo has always been my therapy. The guitar is probably the opposite. The guitar, I think I could play the guitar in my sleep. It doesn't
Okay.
take an awful lot of effort. I don't know why that is. Um, like, I just play a few chords and play a bit of rhythm, like, but it seems to be I could do it morning, noon, and night. The banjo, there's a kind of love hate thing. There's times I pick the banjo up and I can't play it.
Really?
Yeah, there's times when it's just not happening. Like, it's not happening the way I want it to happen. Like last night, I'll be doing workshops and coming up in May now, and they asked me to do a video, and I was like, yeah, we're going to be doing workshops, play the banjo. I was like, oh my God, just wasn't the case. I'll try again tomorrow. So it does sort of tend to go sort of yin and yang sort of thing, where there can be
I think
times when
that's
it's
true
not.
of anything though. I think there's days where you just know, not today. It's not happening. And if you can possibly get out of it, away you go. Unfortunately, that happens days where you have a gig,
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah,
days where
yeah,
you have
yeah,
a
yeah,
workshop,
yeah,
or
yeah.
days where you have to get up in front of somebody and speak and all the rest of it, and you just have to some way find some way of getting through it, which you probably will because you are so used to functioning at a particular level, because you are. And I think something that's really interesting what you've said there is the fact that whenever you were younger, you almost learned both instruments, even though you were diligent and, locking yourself away, listening to Prosperous,
Yeah, yeah.
going through the booklet. At the same time, though, there's a talent that has to be there for you for it to stick, I think. And there must have been something in you. I think you just have had that underlying talent the whole way along, where it
The-
was easy enough for you to pick up.
I teach up in Torrent, so Claire McChrystal asked me to teach
As in Donaghmore and
in
Tyrone.
Donaghmore and Tyrone. You know it well.
I do.
And we teach up in the Torrent Centre, and I'm in the changing rooms. And you know what's on the wall? Now, I'm going to have to think of what it says, but I tell the kids this when I'm teaching them: hard work beats talent all the time. So you can be talented, and some people are very talented but don't do anything with it.
Mm-hmm.
So you have talent, which, yeah, I most likely do. Well, obviously, I must have had some sort of talent, but the work I put into it when I was younger,
Has paid off.
yeah, it definitely has. Like, and it has helped me to focus in other aspects of my life. That ability to focus, learning to play music, and that discipline. Um, it's not like you have to go to music classes, because I never went to a class in my life. There wasn't the availability of doing classes. I was playing the banjo for about 18 months, and then I was teaching it. So it was like an obsession, but I was disciplined enough to sit down and spend a significant amount of time practicing it, and always trying to play better. Even today, like, I'm always trying to play better. I'm always my worst critic, as I said earlier on. Like, painters don't like their own paintings, you know. When I listen back, like this music that I'm doing now, and I'm going, oh my God, we're going to have to record this again, or we're going to have to record that again. But there's a point where I'll just say, right, enough's enough.
I think it comes to the point where that has to be what you say, and you have to be. content with what you've done, or you're going to drive yourself cracked, Stevie. And that, I suppose, that's the danger. And it is the temptation when you record an album the way you have recorded this new one, which is called Douchey,
Yeah.
meaning wake in the Irish language. And this is your fourth album, am I right?
Fourth, yeah.
When you do have the ability to play all the instruments, record, you've it all set up to record it yourself, you can go at this time and time again. No, not good enough, not good enough. Where do you draw the line? How do you draw that boundary?
I've recorded it 4 times.
Stevie Dunne, get away.
You know, and
Because that was the first thing you said to me when you came in today. I says, well, what about this album? Oh, a painter's never happy with his own work. And I was like, yeah, they're not, but there has to come a point where you release it and let it go, because then it's not about you anymore. It becomes about the listener.
But I kind of reference like the 3 albums that I've done when I'm doing this in terms of sound. The playing isn't necessarily an issue, it's just the sound. And I suppose like I went down this road to try and learn, because I've never really been good at sound. Even like, you know, when I'm playing on stage, like I don't really know what I'm looking for. You know, if it sounds like a guitar, then it's happy enough. But like, is there a better way of doing it? So
Okay.
like during lockdown, I kind of got stuck into this during lockdown when we were unable to play, and I was watching videos of people on YouTube or Facebook, and like they looked like they were coming out of cinema. You know, they were really professionally made, and the sound was crystal clear. And I was sitting on my phone with an app called Acapella, and Banjo sounded like, you know, Angus Young from AC/DC. You know, it's like,
Is that not what you've been thriving for all this time?
no, absolutely, yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. It's like highway to hell without a doubt. You know, actually, I can play AC/DC on the banjo, but I kind of leave that for at home.
As for TikTok.
As for that actually, my son tells me I have a TikTok account, and I'm going, I never joined TikTok, I'm never on it, and I must have joined it at some point. But
In the pandemic, we joined all these things in the pandemic.
But yeah, so yes, I'm thinking, how are these guys doing this, you know? And then I realised that they were recording the audio and the video separately and then editing it together. So when I done my second album, the learning from the first album was to go in with the demos, you know, and have those kind of prepared. So I bought like an audio interface and microphone and that, and then I set that up in our first house, and I pulled that out of the cupboard and started getting into sort of recording sound to see if I could do this. And I did. I put a few videos out on Facebook, and like with sound engineering, it is like a rabbit hole I've been struggling to get out of. And once I get out of it, I'm not doing any more. We'll put that down the record. Probably put another one out in 2 years' time. But
Now that you've got the taste for it.
but I suppose the thing was about, you know, and there were, you know, that the title tune, Dushik, which was actually a tune that I wrote in the electric guitar during lockdown, you know, and I put it out, and I kind of thought, right, what would be something different? Put the electric guitar and the banjo together, you know, and then people were sort of messaging me, oh, that's another album coming out and stuff. And I had no intentions of doing another album. But I really liked recording in the house, and it gave me, like, I like sort of testing new things and seeing, you know, what could come up with creativity. And then like last year I was in hospital for a couple of weeks. I was quite unwell, and then I was off work for a few months, sort of recuperating and undergoing investigations, which thankfully we're all right now. But that's where the catharsis comes in from playing music. So even when I was sick, like, and you're really frustrated because you're used to playing 2 or 3 nights a week, going out and having that social interaction and stuff, and then you're stuck in the house and you're feeling miserable. I use music as a therapy to kind of pass my time. And but this collection of tunes, they were all kind of wrote in about 4 weeks, with the exception of about 3 of them. So Douchig was written during COVID, and then 2 tunes I had written this year, actually, or no, towards the end of last year, just doodling on the banjo. But that's kind of how most of the tunes that have come about. So I never actually sit down and go to purposefully write music.
Write an album, yeah, it just happened.
It just came out, and
But
then
maybe it was time because your last album was 2018, and it couldn't be more different to what you've done now. Where in 2018 that was live at
yeah,
Crosskeys, like,
yeah,
and
yeah,
what
yeah.
a vibe, what a moment, what a night captured on that album. It's just stellar, and I would encourage anybody to seek it out and listen to it. And the musicians you gathered round you for that recording as
Yeah,
well,
yeah, yeah.
I'd say all cherry picked because they were who they were. You could just run down who you had there on that album.
So that album, yeah, 2018, and done it in the Cross Keys, and Vincent was very good. You know, Vincent Hurl, who owns the Cross Keys, and I love going up to the Cross Keys. And so do my kids who are playing now. They love going up there. It's great crack. And the last time I was in the Cross Keys was actually with Bioga just before Christmas. So it's always a good night. But yeah, I decided to do that in 2018, and I had Brian McGrath on keys, Jerry Thompson on guitar, Cyril O'Donoghue, who's sadly no longer with us, on bouzouki, and John Joe Kelly on barrel. And the funny thing about that is, like, I'd gathered the tunes up. Me and Jerry lived fairly relatively close by, so we used, we played in Hayden's quite often, um, and we used to just run maybe round to each other's house, maybe 3 or 4 times before the album, just to go through. Brian and John Joe came up on the Saturday night and came round to my house and stayed with Jerry. Came round to my house, and we ran through a practice, and that was it. We'd more crack than music, to be honest. And Cyril came up that morning. He left Shannon about 6:30 and was up about 11:30. Cup of tea, and then for about 12:30 went to the Cross Keys. So he hadn't even practiced with us. And we just went in, and the vibe was just, I play the tunes and just you guys do what you do. And all bar, I think, 2 tracks in that album was first take.
Oh wow.
So it was pretty.
You can tell the
good,
energy
like,
on it.
those-
You can just so tell. And then it's, you've gone to the other extreme now with this new album,
Oh my
where
God,
it's,
have I what?
I know, but look, it's a different sound, it's a different vibe, it's a different experience, and that's what creating music's all about. It's like that wee kind of stamp of where you are in your life right now.
Yeah, yeah,
For
yeah.
all the reasons you've just explained.
Yeah, yeah, no,
You know?
absolutely. I think with this, because I was kind of playing all the instruments in on this album, and I've written all the tunes and I've recorded it, and I'm doing what generally you wouldn't do as an artist. You would not. Well, a lot of artists will record their own music, but they'll get somebody else maybe to mix it, somebody else to master it. I'm doing all that. Not because I'm a cheapskate and I don't want to pay anybody, but I'm doing it for the learning. And I find it really, there's a point where it gets really enjoyable, and then if you get frustrated and you get stuck more into that rabbit hole of watching more YouTube videos.
But then how do you bring yourself out of it? Because it's interesting there where you've no teacher this time either. You're just self-taught. You're a self-taught musician as well. Was there ever a point where you thought, I need somebody to maybe steady the ship here, to give me a wee steer in a particular direction? Would you have that person you go to, or
No.
just all
No.
self-taught all your life?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, in saying that, like, the first album I've recorded with Donal, and like Donal, I spoke to him, I said, hey, you'll be grand, that, don't worry about it, you'll play on.
It's Donal O'Connor.
Donal O'Connor, yeah. And Donal, I done live at the Cross Keys with Donal. And then the second album was with Sean O'Graham. And Sean O was actually, he came off the Australian tour, and I was in Madden's, or in the Garrick with Neve there about maybe 3 weeks ago. So I was just chatting to him, and he was listening to the track, and he was going, yeah, sounds great. And he is a seasoned professional listening to music,
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, I think probably at the moment, because I'm in the process of mixing, I'm just overthinking it. So, just going to go home and finish it and then just put it out.
It's not just women who overthink then. Overthinking's universal.
Yeah, I overthink a lot. And then sometimes I don't think of anything.
When you're in the session and you're at ease and you're in the moment.
I'm at one with the music.
You're at one with the music. Well, you're. It seems that you are, because you're a session regular on the scene in Belfast, and your face would be well known from sessions, as I mentioned already, here in Madden's and in the Garrick. And then once a month you go up to Tyrone to Hayden's as well for the last Saturday night. Session. What is it about the session that keeps you, turning out, and especially on the cold nights, the winter's nights, Stevie, there's a lot of us, when you're not getting any younger, you'd prefer the jammies on the couch and, they put the slippers on and not get out the door. But something's bringing you out to the session.
They, it's a really deep question in it. I think the session scene in traditional music is more of a social interaction than just playing tunes, and it probably on reflection, you don't appreciate what you have until you don't have it. And during COVID, when we couldn't play together, it was like both your arms and your legs had been completely disabled from doing anything. So certainly when we were unlocked post COVID, it made me appreciate more the session scene. And the session, it's great when you're out in the session scene because you don't know who's going to walk in, you don't know who's going to come and play with you. Obviously, there's a core, group of people who are, sort of will anchor the session, but there's all you never know. You're always going to potentially hear a new tune as well, and that bit I love. And I love kind of just sitting down playing tunes. And most of the sessions I do at the moment are guitar. I rarely play banjo in sessions because I generally get asked to play guitar more, which I don't know whether it's because I'm a good guitar player or a bad banjo player, but it's more, I suppose, with the guitar, like I kind of like driving the session. I'm sure you've probably heard it in here. Like I like driving it. I like kind of pushing the rhythm of the session and, kind of love playing and keeping that vibe going, And yeah, like I often think if I didn't play music, what am I doing? Going out on a Saturday watching the football, and then coming home and going to work Monday to Friday, and then thinking about what's the score on a Wednesday night. Like I'm not really into football. I'll watch the GAA, particularly if Tyrone's playing. Not because you're here, because my wife Siobhan is from Tyrone, so she loves watching the Gaelic. So we'll watch the Gaelic. We'll maybe go to a match or two, and that's about as much sport as I'll watch.
What you're saying there is like, if you didn't have music, what else would you have in life?
What would you have?
Outside your work and your family?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, I dread to think what I'd be doing.
Well, you're very busy now with family and music because the two have beautifully come together.
Yeah.
Because you've two kids, Finian and Cahir.
Yeah.
And both of them are into music, and both in their own way.
Yeah. So I suppose we started them during lockdown, actually, with Dunulla, playing the whistle. And I kind of, they showed very little interest in music. But Siobhan was like, no, we're sending them to music, and that's just the way it is. And I was like, I've never been to a music class in my life.
Good woman, Siobhan.
So she put her foot down and sent them. And they really didn't, at that stage, they were still in primary school and young and, half an hour playing the whistle and they're playing, rattle and bog and so forth. And they really didn't, they didn't take to it then like they have now. Finian, I suppose, was first when he went to, he goes to St. Malachy's here and Cahir goes to St. Mary's. When Finian went to St. Malachy's, there's something clicked with him because there was other kids there playing traditional music. And I remember, like, he wanted to learn the piano, so send him to piano lessons. But then I was like, oh, I'm not doing that. And there's something, I don't know, was clicked in him when he was about 12, maybe 12 and a half, that he actually became obsessed with it. And I said to him, there's a room full of instruments up there. You have guitars, banjos, bouzouki's, mandolins. Just you go and pick something. And I came home one day from work and I heard the banjo upstairs and I was like, better not be the good banjo. But I went up and I kind of showed him a few things. But then I realised very quickly that it was very, very difficult to teach your own children. So we took him then to Glengormley School of Music and he stayed there for a while. And then he's kind of doing what I had done. He's just listening to music. But I'm watching YouTube and, watching videos and listening to all the young bands that are out now, and he's obsessed with it. And then took him to the John O'Neill Festival because I was teaching down there, and Lunasa was playing. And he was watching Pat Ducey, who was playing with Lunasa that night, playing the guitar. And you know the whole morning nightcap sort of riff that Donna came up with. And it said to me, I want a guitar for Christmas. So I got him a guitar for Christmas. And I said to him, I'm not teaching you. You just go and look it up. And he did. He went and looked up how to play the guitar, and he self-taught himself the same way as I did. And then he said to me, Daddy, I want to do drop D. And I says, just drop your D string down and you just go and do it. I would choose. But he actually now is playing the guitar. He's unbelievable on it, actually, when I think about it, because I wasn't playing like that when I was his age on the guitar. And he's actually, it's strange to think of it. The way he's playing now is he's obviously been listening to me record this album, because he's there and I could do the launch, you do that. Here, listen. And he's playing what I've recorded, But it's great to see him. And then Cahir, he kind of, he kind of is very regimental about, he's just set in his ways. And I took him to see Bioga at Christmas, just in the Crosskeys.
That was the click moment then, was it?
That was the moment and Cahir's like very quiet when he wants to be. And he'll not tell you too much, like he'll not go up, like Finian is up and you'll hear the guitar and you'll hear the banjo and you'll hear the mandolin, and next of all you hear the barrel and stuff. Cahir, there was a point in time that you'd have time to go and practice. There he was the weekend, taking the accordion out, playing away. And he's been taught by Gary Curley. So I'm taking him to Gary, who's brilliant with him. Like, he's just taking him out of his shell.
Oh, so between chunky yoga, business on tour.
Oh, listen, you can't beat the chunkies.
But the other thing that's happening to your two boys that didn't happen to you is that they are now part of this thing that has grown legs in ways we couldn't have imagined whenever we were younger. Going to a Bioga gig, going to the Lunasa gig, having access to those sorts of gigs. We had them every now and again.
Yeah.
And then not even that, but all their wee friends are playing music. They all are playing together. There's an energy of them bringing their own thing to this as well, where yes, they can use you for reference and, Daddy, help me with this, or get the advice off you and all the rest of it and the guidance. But they're constantly coming up with their own ideas, because they're just saturated. There's so much around them. Can you see that in them that wasn't with you?
Yeah, I know. I mean, the first thing I'd say is there's so much resource out there now. There's actually too much resource. You can actually look at.
It's overwhelming by times.
Yeah, you can go. There's so, like, when I was learning the banjo, there was, I think, 2 banjo players in County Louth. And I knew that because their competitions were Cultus.
Right.
Now there's 2 banjos. There's 2 or 3 banjos in every village, maybe even more. Banjos just skyrocketed over the last 15, 20 years. I suppose they have the opportunity, but there's also a pressure on them because there's, Stevie Dunne's children. So, they should be able to play like Stevie Dunne. And I've always said to them, just do your own thing. Just play music for yourself. Don't put yourself under pressure. Finian, he's flying. I mean, he's now doing a gig at the end of the month in Glora and Ennis. And I was saying earlier on, I haven't even played in Glora and Ennis, like, what's going on here? Let's have a word here, But it's great to see him getting those opportunities. And then part of that, Cahir sees Finian getting the gigs. So he's like, when am I going to get gigs? I says, you keep learning tunes. And that's exactly what he's doing. So he's focused as well. But it's great to see. But the amount of resource that they have is unbelievable. Whereas opposed to me having tapes, the odd time you would be looking at the RTE guide saying, when is their music on?
Oh yeah, an appointment to view.
And then taping it on the old top loader VHS. And I think I wrecked about 4 VHS recorders, going back and forward and rewinding and forward. My father used to say it's not a piano, so when I first seen Clogherhead and Artie McGlynn playing together, it was to me that was rock and roll.
Still is to a lot of people.
Absolutely.
To be honest.
Yeah.
Really.
That was just
cream of the crop.
That's what I aspired to. And then working out how Artie was playing, and looking at them playing. It was, I think it was definitely in Oma. I can't remember the bar. I think might have been Brogan's. Might have been Brogan's. I think it was early 90s they recorded, and I think it was on the Corner House programs.
Right.
And Cahill and Arlie were playing. The tunes were The Pigeon on the Gate, The Boy in Hunt, and The Boys of Malin. And I wasn't really Cahill was playing the fiddle, but I was watching Artie, and I remember pausing the VHS, wondering how is he doing that E minor chord. Now I'm about 12 at the time, and realising that he was covering his top string, which is generally E, but actually he had tuned down to D. So then that was my introduction to drop D, you know. And then just watching back how he was playing and just really kind of like, you know, getting
And
hypnotized by
transfixed with it and finding your thing.
Yeah.
Being so passionate about music then, and like the way you describe it, and like, do you make instruments as well? Have you dabbled in that?
Yeah.
So you're making the instruments, the recording, the whole process, going through it and making sure you know every inch of the process.
Yeah.
To mastering the instruments as well, right? You know, you're covering an awful lot of ground there, Stevie. Was there ever a temptation to go with it professionally?
Oh yeah, there was a few times, like, and I've been asked to join, you know, different outfits and that over the years, but I've always kind of stayed sort of grounded in the healthcare profession. And like, I've been to Milton and Malbit twice. I've only ever been, like, before, you know, the kids were born, I think maybe to 3 or 4 All Irelands. I didn't really venture that far out of Belfast. You know, I kind of always was just around Belfast. I only went, the first time I went to Hayden's was, I think, probably about 15 years ago. So, yeah, I kind of did think about it professionally, but then I met Siobhan, and we had the kids, and I don't want to miss a minute of, you know, when, especially when they were younger. I didn't want to be going away touring. And like, I've went away, and like, I've been away, you know, I was away in Italy last October, and like, you're away and you're just jumping off the plane, and that I'm wishing I'm home again, you know. So I like going away for a weekend, maybe, but I always love coming home.
So for you, you have found the right place for music in your life.
Yeah.
It's where it's supposed to be.
I think so, yeah. I mean, yeah, I probably could turn professional, but it's not an easy life either, you know.
No.
It's not an easy life, and you have to be willing to tour, and you have to be willing to travel, and there's nothing ever guaranteed, you know. So nothing, I suppose there's nothing really guaranteed in life, but yeah, I'm kind of really content with where I'm at, you know, playing tunes. And if I get playing tunes, I'm happy enough, you know. If I get playing a few sessions, that'll do me, you know.
And remind me, which night of the week is your Madden session?
Friday night.
Friday night. That's why the banjo comes out, because Stevie sits over in that corner.
Play the guitar.
Over the guitar.
Play guitar, yeah. Play
Over
the
in that corner, up
corner,
here,
yeah.
and upstairs in Madden's. If you come in on a Friday night, you'll find Stevie over there with a few other faces. I'm sure people will know also from having been guests on the podcast as well.
Yeah.
Well, come here. It's been great to drag you across to the other side of the room, get a bit of peace and quiet up here,
Absolutely,
and have a bit of a chat
I
with us
don't
today.
think I've been in the bar when it is this quiet, you know.
There's something really lovely about it, isn't there?
Oh, it's great. It's lovely.
Class, yeah.
Yeah, it is lovely.
We've made it our own up here. So, and apparently, I've heard people are now coming and getting their photographs taken in the booth for the podcast.
Are they?
we're letting on they're presenting the podcast.
As long as they're buying a pint.
That's it.
That's all right.
Having a pint and listening to the tunes. That's what it's all about. Stevie Dunne, thanks a million for joining us.
Thank you, Lynette. Cheers. Thanks
You're
very much.
my